Hello Booktube. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Glenn and I am going to do the quarter year crisis tag. I believe this is an original tag created by Royson's Reading. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name of that channel. I was tagged by Alex at Alex's Archives. Thank you, Alex, for tagging me. Really appreciate it. And happy to update everyone on my reading and answer the questions in the prompt here. So let's get started. First question is, how many books have you read so far? Well, I just counted them the other day. Not counting audiobooks, I have read 11 books, which may not be a lot for a lot of other people on BookTube, but I'm kind of pretty happy with it. Actually, it's I've never really tracked my reading before, so at least at least at this point I can say how many books I've read. And of course I have to admit that among the 11 books I've read, one of them was 84 Charing Crossing Road, which I believe is less than 100 pages. So, but the other books were in the 300 to 400 page range, and they've been kind of split more or less equally between fiction and nonfiction. Number 2, have you already found the book you think might be a 2026 favorite? If not, what was your favorite book you read that wasn't quite 5-star? Well, I think really probably my favorite book of the year so far is the book I just got done reading. It's called The Pope at War by David Kertzer. It's about Pope Pius XII and World War II, how the Pope dealt with the fascist regimes of Germany, Nazi Germany, and Italy, and what he did or didn't do in order to speak out against the evils of the war, and what he did or didn't do on behalf of Jewish people. And it was my first time reading this author, and I found him pretty informative and a pretty easy read. And so I enjoyed that. So far I would say The Pope at War has been my favorite book. Next question. Any 1-star books, least favorite book of the year? Yeah, I can't really think of anything that fits that description. I guess I'm careful enough with either the books that I start to read or the books that I ultimately finish. Probably the one, I don't even know if I would call it a frustrating read. I DNF'd The Proud Tower by Barbara Tuchman. It's a book I've tried to read a couple of times previously. It's about the world before World War I. And Barbara Tuchman's writing is, of course, fabulous. She's a great narrative historian. But there are a couple things about the book that have kind of stumped me, or that have just sort of made it a little difficult. I got about halfway through the book, and the problem is, for me, is that the chapters are really long. The chapters are about 60 to 70 pages, and I think that's just kind of it's just not. I'm just not really quite sure how to. I think I just have struggled to figure out how to read a book like that. Of course, I can just read a few pages at a time. But then the challenge becomes, how do I sort of keep track of all the names and places and things? So I set it aside, but I ultimately did pick up or download the Audible version of this book. So I've been listening to. I sort of picked up halfway through the audiobook and sort of listening to the chapters that I hadn't actually read. And one of the sort of frustrating things about the structure of the book is, like I said, it has these long chapters, and there's no introduction to the chapter. There's no sort of outlining what the reader can expect going forward and what the points are that are going to be made. And so, for example, I'm on the chapter that's mostly about Germany, and she has started off talking about Strauss and his music. It touched a little bit on the work of Nietzsche and sort of how Strauss, sort of responded to or incorporated his ideas. And I'm certain that she is working towards a connection of, how Christian or how German culture sort of led into or created the mood of Germany before the war, but it's not really quite clear, where she's going. But I do think there's a kind of method to the madness, and I guess I should really save this for like a book review, but I'm not done the book yet. But I do think there's kind of a method to the madness of what she's doing, although maybe I'm sort of giving her an out here. But she does say, like in the preface of the book, that she is writing the book with the, not in any sense of having the participants realize or be able to look back on what, to have their pre-war memory sort of colored by the war itself. And so she wants to capture that pre-war period without any bias or any reinterpretation from the war itself. And so just as the participants maybe don't know what's coming and don't know what their actions are leading to, maybe that's sort of is a way at sort of having the reader kind of not really know what's coming. But anyway, I might be overthinking it. A couple of the chapters have been really good. There was a chapter on the anarchists. There was a chapter on the Dreyfus affair in France. And those were quite good, but I poured a lot of energy into reading those chapters and did lots of underlining and annotating, and I think I just kind of wore myself out. So I sort of set the book down, and like I said, I picked up the audio version, and that seems to be helping. So anyway, very long answer to that question. Next question, most read genre so far. Well, as you might gather from the book I just talked about, it seems like the genre I've read the most from this year so far is European history. I've read 2 books on, I guess it was 14th century Britain. I read a book on Henry V, who lived in the early 1400s. And then I read a book on the War of the Roses, and that book sort of takes up the rest of the 1400s before the Tudor age comes along. Also read a book on the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989. That was a book that I had seen mentioned on Steve Donahue's channel, and it sort of flowed out of a video from John at Must Read More, and it was sort of a topic I had kind of been thinking about a little bit off and on, but realized I hadn't read anything on, and so I enjoyed that. And right now, and of course I've read the Pope at War, which is mostly a European centric look at the war. And very very recently I've started reading the Rise of Rome by Anthony Everett, which of course is much much earlier book, much earlier time period. And but yeah, it looks like a lot of my reading is kind of concentrated in, weighted a little heavily towards nonfiction in general, and within the nonfiction genre, mostly a focus on European history. A book that surprised you is the next question. I think, again, I would go back to the book was, let me make sure I've got the title right. Yes, it was Collapse, the book I read on the opening of the Berlin Wall. And I guess by saying that the book surprised me isn't that, you know, it was really good and I wasn't optimistic about it, or it was, you know, completely different than what I thought. Although in a way the story itself of the opening of the Berlin Wall was not. I was alive. I was in my early 20s. I was 23 to be exact, in the fall or winter of 1989. I do remember, or have some memory of, the opening of the Berlin Wall. I think what I remember maybe is more from histories of the event and pictures and so forth, of watching people sort of take their sledgehammers to the wall and take pieces of the wall. And I guess in my mind that had sort of built up into that was how the wall, that was how people got through the wall, that there was this decision to take the wall down and people just went up and started smashing it. And that was actually not what happened. It was, in fact, kind of an accident. Certainly there were forces in the wider world and in the East German state and society that were moving things, you know, in the direction of greater openness. But there were, at the same time, there were equal forces sort of pushing back against that. And it was not at all clear that the Berlin Wall was going to come down, or that it was, you know, that things would be as peaceful as they were. And it ended up being that it was kind of largely due to some bureaucratic snafus of them the East Germans trying to alleviate problems of people wanting to you know, leave the country or go to other sort of Warsaw Pact countries, and they were going to let some people go into, I guess, Austria, but then they weren't going to open the Berlin Wall. They were just going to create an opening somewhere else in East Germany, and they ended up, some government committee, some group of people making the decisions, somehow ended up sort of allowing it to, putting in saying that the Berlin Wall would be open for a certain length of time or at a certain day, and government spokesman just sort of got handed that message and gave the message out, and so things just really there was a little bit of impromptness about it, that wasn't clear if everyone was on the same page in the East German government when this happened, and so there was a real mix of factors, but it was a pretty fascinating book, and so I guess I'm a bit surprised that the unfolding of the story was a bit different than either what I remembered reading at the time or what my memory has created based on pictures or videos after the event. So a good learning exercise, let's put it at that. The next question: book that's come out in 2026 already that you want to read but haven't yet. So a couple people responding to this question have answered that they didn't have any new releases that they were waiting for, or that they hadn't read. And I have to say that's really my answer too. But I'll say that I really used to almost kind of religiously follow the new releases on Amazon. You know, every few days or every week on Tuesday when the new releases would officially be released, I was reading a lot of American history at the time, or at least buying a lot of American history books, and so, every week I was kind of on that, and I was looking to see what new books were coming out, and so I used to really follow that, and I used to buy new releases, but I really don't buy new releases anymore, and so I guess I will wait to be surprised by what shows up in the bookstore, or what I hear someone talking about. But yeah, sorry, no good answer for that right now. The next two questions have to do with goals. One being, what goal have I made that I'm succeeding at, and the other being what goal that I've made that I need to focus on. And actually, I'm afraid I'm just not really, I haven't made any goals for this year, any book goals. I'm not a particularly goal-oriented person, but I have tried several things out. And just based on different booktube channels that I follow, different things. Randy Ray, for example, The Literate Texan, speaks of the reading or book lifestyle, and I have tried doing some annotating, and I've spoken about that in a previous video. I have tried kind of doing some book journaling, or at least tracking on a daily basis how many pages I've read from which books, just to kind of keep track of what I'm reading, and also just beginning to track my reading, which I hadn't done before. And so I guess to the extent that was a goal or a potential interest of mine, that is one goal, or one one sort of habit that I started early in the year and have stuck to. So I've kept track of which books I've read and in what format, and if they were, in book format, how many pages they were, what the genre was. I just thought it'd be a good idea to try and have some sense of what books I'd read this year and a loose idea of how many pages. And I'm also keeping track of audiobooks too. And so I'm still going pretty well with that, but other than that, I've tried a few different things out. I don't think I'm really going to be much of an annotator or book journaler, but I do have those tools with me in case I want to kind of come back to those. And let's say, other than that, I've also joined Randy Ray's book club on his new Patreon, which is the Seriously Read Book Club, and so that will involve reading a different book from the literary canon each month. And so that kind of fits a loose goal of mine to be better read, at least in terms of reading some of the classics, reading some of the key works of literature that other people know and talk about, and that have influenced our world and society. So I guess I would say I've picked up some goals. I've established some book goals this year. Have tried a few different things out that I think maybe don't quite work for me. But yeah, so it's been a mix of things, and I'm just still fairly new to BookTube and still kind of feeling my way, but definitely want to improve my reading experience. And so looking for ways to do that, whether it's the breadth of my reading or the way in which I read or retain information. So, okay, looks like the next and last question is: new to you booktubers or book grammars, booktokers, etc., for 2026 that you recommend? Well, I guess I will just refer to channels that I have recently subscribed to. One of those was Alex's channel at Alex's Archives, and he was the one who tagged me on this video, and so I'm happy to recommend him. I've gotten some good ideas from him, and I've appreciated his videos because I think he has said some things and talked about some things that have dovetailed with my own, some of the issues I've come up with in trying to kind of get back on the nonfiction reading bandwagon, and so I've appreciated that. And let me see who else here I want to recommend. I will put these down. In the chat. Let's see. Who else have I know, let's see, I only recently started reading Brian's channel at the Krusty Codex. He's very well read, has a large collection of books, reads a lot of history and nonfiction, some of which I've read and some of which I now have put onto my list and will be kind of trying to keep up with him and some of his reading, and also just sort of following his approach to reading. So just getting to know him a little bit and his channel. And fortunately I am trying to go through my laptop's subscription list, which is kind of all out of order. There are a couple of other channels though that are fairly new to me that I have subscribed to, and I will link to them downstairs in the description. And so that's it for my my quarter year crisis updates. Thanks again to Alex at Alex's Archives for tagging me. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed doing this tag video, and I look forward to seeing all of you again soon. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.